Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, we're going to pause here just briefly to establish a quorum. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Trent,
Here.
Coleman, Arthur, Beck, Brown, Carter, Fitzwater, Gannon, Koenig, Razor, Thompson Raider.
All right, excellent. We will now continue with public testimony. Please come forward and proceed when ready.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA, the association would like to go on record in support of the bill. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Jim Erickson, representing the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City, Missouri, and here to support the bill.
Thank you for that testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support? House Bill 1569. Seeing none, are any witnesses here to testify in opposition? Seeing none, are any witnesses here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Representative, do you have any closing remarks? No, then that will conclude the public hearing on House Bill 1569. We'll next go to public hearing on House Bill 1486. Representative Shields, please come forward and proceed when ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Representative Brenda Shields, representing District 11 in St. Joseph, Missouri. Today, I'd like to present House Bill 1486. This bill provides voluntary universal pre-K to all qualified for free and reduced lunch students before they attend kindergarten. Research shows that 85% of the brain is developed in the first 1,000 days of life, and 9% is developed by the age of 5. Knowing this, it's evident that our greatest return on investment occurs when we start education early, and even more so when we provide these services to low-income students. In the short term, it reduces costs of special education and remediation. It improves social skills, it reduces behavior challenges, and it improves their vocabulary. Longitudinal studies show that pre-K for low-income students decreases the likelihood of future criminal involvement, reduces the utilization of public assistance, increases participation in the workforce, and provides economic growth. And if you think about early childhood development as an economic tool, it has a higher rate of return than many of the tax incentives that we now use in economic development. The return on investment can be as high as 13% per child per year. Last year, we approved approximately $80 million for the expansion of pre-K through grants. Many of our schools have started efforts to expand the pre-K and for their free and reduced lunch children, and now's the time that we let every qualifying 4-year-old have the opportunity to attend pre-K if they are a free and reduced lunch student. In closing, we can continue to fund early education at the same level, and we can continue to expect to see the same results. We can continue to plan on how many prison beds we're going to build based on third grade reading levels. Or we can make the bold move to increase the numbers of students in our voluntary preschool programs and not see immediate results. In fact, most of us won't see the results during our time in the legislature. But in 10 years or 20 years, we'll be able to look back at our time in the legislature and know that we made the bold move to fund early childhood education. So we can watch the amount of prison beds decrease, participation in the workforce increase, and our economy be strong. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Questions for the bill sponsor? Yes, Senator Arthur, please proceed.
Thanks for your leadership on this. It's related to the bill, but not specific to the text. Did the House approve funding for similar pre-K programs this year?
They approved, well, in the budget, not necessarily, but they approved this bill as it was written.
So,
if I could just for a moment, Representative, we're being told that the witness mic is almost inaudible, so if we could
It has a green light
try
on
to pull
so
it a
I'm
little
trying
closer maybe, so the folks out there can hear you.
I'll be really close here.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Please proceed.
So was there a specific line item that would be dedicated to this pre-K funding? Okay. Thank you.
Further questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, thank you again for that presentation. Witnesses here in support. Senate Bill 1486. Please come forward and proceed when ready.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Get as close as I can.
I think you may have the same problem. Just get it close so
I'll
we
talk
can.
right into it. Good morning, Chairman Trent, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of House Bill 1486. My name is Stacy Priest. I'm representing Aligned. Aligned is a not-for-profit organization comprised of business leaders who are committed to improving Missouri's education system through advocacy, outreach, and investment. We would like to thank Representative Shields for sponsoring House Bill 1486. Currently, some school districts and charter schools face a barrier with the limitation of preschool funding to 4% of all K-12 students eligible for free or reduced price lunch. With this, smaller districts can receive funding for only a handful of students. For school districts that are small school hold harmless, they do not currently receive any additional funding for additional students. House Bill 1486 uses a funding source independent of the funding formula so that those districts would have the opportunity to draw down funding to support preschool. For some school districts and charter schools, this funding would provide increased opportunities to serve all of their preschool children who are eligible for free or reduced price lunch. To open a new classroom, schools need a critical mass of students to make preschool economically and operationally sustainable. Finally, under House Bill 1486, school districts and charter schools may be able to expand their current programs to meet their community's increasing needs for high-quality preschool. With the preschool funding in House Bill 1486, children in all school districts and charter schools, large and small, will benefit. Aligned encourages the committee to support House Bill 1486 in order to provide additional opportunities for high-quality preschool. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for the witness from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Robin Shelp. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy for Kids Win Missouri. We want to go in record of support of this bill for the reasons others have said, and we thank Representative Shields for sponsoring this. I want to just mention, in April of 2023, Springfield released the Mayor's Commission for Children's Readiness for Kindergarten 2022 report. And among students who qualified for free and reduced lunch in that community, only 40% of students who did not attend pre-K were prepared for kindergarten, compared to 70.2% of students who had access to pre-K. As a former classroom teacher, 30% is a big difference when you're trying to teach kids basic things like reading and math. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Yeah, so we strongly support this. We know that this benefits not only the students who are on free and reduced lunch and have access to pre-K, but also to the other kids in the classroom.
Thank you for being here. Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support?
Kara Porches on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I know I have to touch the mic for you to be able to hear me. It's kind of gross. Want to go on record in support for all the reasons that were stated before. This is, again, voluntary. It's not mandatory, which is an important component to recognize. And we also believe if kids are set up for success early, they're going to also be more successful along their academic career and eventually in the workforce. So for these reasons, we are supportive and happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chase Campbell, going on record in support for Children's Trust Fund. I would just echo what Robin with Kids Win Missouri had to say. We gotta eat.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Next witness in support?
Good morning. Dean Johnson with Quality Schools Coalition. We understand that a high-quality early childhood education is critical to a child's success, both in school during their K-12 years and for the rest of their life. We also understand that this opportunity is oftentimes limited by family income, and we support 1486 because it will help close that gap so that all families have access to that resource. Happy to take any questions.
Questions for the witness from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Harris on behalf of the Missouri State Teachers Association, go on record on behalf of this bill. We definitely know that those pre-K students get a head start on their learning, and our teachers can tell those students that have had that pre-K learning and haven't, and they know that that makes a big difference as they're starting kindergarten and moving into elementary school. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Jim Erickson, representing the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City, Missouri, and we are here in support of this bill. It may seem like a little bit of a stretch for an economic development guy to be supporting a early childhood education bill, but the reality is when we are working with companies who are considering expanding, hiring Kansas City Missourians, workforce comes up all the time. And when I started in economic development less than 10 years ago, workforce was maybe the 6th or 7th topic that we would discuss when trying to win a business to our community, but now it's really risen to the top, and communities that have a compelling workforce story just fare better in these attraction and expansion projects. They're more attractive, and for all the reasons Representative Shields mentioned, this is something that matters to our companies. They're obviously looking far down the future, but when companies expand and grow, they want to be here for the long haul, and so this is something that does come up. It does matter, and it not only supports the students' growth, but also it addresses some of the economics of folks trying to access the workforce who are parents of young children like myself. We know that this, coupled with items like the child care tax credit, can make it more feasible for young parents to access the workforce. And so for those reasons and more, we support this bill. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. Our resolution speaks in favor of expanded access to quality pre-K. Lots of great testimony from the sponsor and the other witnesses. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support? Seeing none, or seeing one? Thank you for that testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Any further witnesses in support? Seeing none, not even any shy ones. Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Any witnesses here for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Representative, do you have any closing remarks? And with that, we will conclude the public hearing on House Bill 1486. We will next go to public hearing for House Bill 1989. Representative Pollitt, please come forward. You may proceed when ready.
Good morning, Chairman Trent and members of the Select Committee on Empowering Missouri Parents and Teachers. For the record, my name is Brad Pollitt. I represent District 52. I'm pleased to bring before you House Bill 1989, the Public School Open Enrollment Act. The bill allows inter-district transfers within the public school system. This is the fourth year that we've voted this bill out of the House of Representatives, and this year it was the first bill we voted out of the House. We sent it over to the Senate February 1st. This bill is the same bill that this committee voted out last year, except with an addition of adding an online component to help districts know in real time when the district reaches their 3% max of students that can leave their district. I think that might have been put on in this committee from last year. Open enrollment is a step in the right direction in educational reform to offer choice and accountability within the public school system. 43 states have some form of open enrollment. 12 out of 13 Midwestern states have open enrollment. Illinois is the only state without it, but they do have a number of other choices. The average user rate for open enrollment in the Midwest is 3 to 8%. Of course, this bill has a 3% cap. This bill gives the receiving district the ability to opt in. If they don't want to opt in, they may still lose students, but they don't have to take students. The state money follows the student, the local money stays at home. And again, the receiving district has all the authority on what students they'll, or what grade they'll take students in. Once the student's accepted in open enrollment, they remain in the new district until they graduate or leave. They're not required to apply again, and future preferences will be given to siblings of those that have been accepted. They have to stay a full year if they're accepted. Then they may return to their sending district, but they must complete a full semester before applying for open enrollment again. I got a lot of stuff that I could read, I guess, but this committee's heard this bill a number of times. I think the time would be better spent if you have questions. I could answer those questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, as was mentioned, this is a bill that has been coming up for several years now, and appreciate your endurance on it. Witnesses in support, House Bill 1989.
Good morning. Kate Casas here on behalf of the American Federation for Children. I know you've all heard this bill a bunch of times, so I don't need to belabor it. Just want to go on record in support.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here this morning. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning again. Dean Johnson with Quality Schools Coalition. We support public school open enrollment because we understand that the traditional neighborhood public school will be right for many families, but not necessarily right for every family. And if there's an open seat in a neighboring school district or school that is the right fit for a non-resident student, we believe that that student should have an opportunity to access that school that is best for them. So we support this bill, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Becky Lohman, registered lobbyist for Missouri Century Foundation, and yes, every kid. I want to go on record and support. Thank the sponsor for his work.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Stacy Priest, once again representing Align. Align appreciates Representative Pollitt's leadership on this initiative, and we support this legislation. The Public School Open Enrollment Act addresses criteria for local policy development, the responsibilities of the school districts and the applicants, and the application process. Representative Pollitt has given thoughtful consideration to numerous issues such as capacity, transportation, special education, and extracurricular activity eligibility. Each year, school districts will be given the opportunity to indicate how many students, if any, that they will accept. So we feel like this is a very open, flexible, open intended, flexible bill that will serve students and families well. House Bill 1989 provides students with new opportunities to access high-quality education to meet their individual academic needs. So we encourage you to support House Bill 1989. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support? Seeing none. Any witnesses here testify in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Committee on Aging with Missouri NEA, we would speak in opposition to House Bill 1989 as passed by the House. Just point the committee's attention once again, Missouri has a long history of concerns regarding segregation in schools, perhaps more than any other state. And when we look around at the over 40 states that have open enrollment, when it's done without proper safeguards and essential criteria for how it's going to work and be monitored, it tends to have an effect of resegregation. And so we were concerned when the House took out a provision that was in the originally filed bill that would have slowed down the effect if we started to see that effect as the bill was implemented. We'd strongly urge that that provision be put back into the bill. At this time, we're opposed to the bill. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Any further witnesses in opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Lodewigan on behalf of the Missouri Council of School Administrators. Our opposition to this has been longstanding. I think the points that we'll continue to make on this is regarding open enrollment and choice in general. I think the number one thing that we have to account for as administrators is trying to figure out a program that makes sense for us to be able to deal with the changes that occur as a result of open enrollment when students leave, whether that be for academic reasons, convenience reasons, or whatnot. We have to, unfortunately, those losses don't just occur in one particular area. And so it doesn't, all the students don't leave Mrs. Smith's third grade class so we can just get rid of Mrs. Smith. Instead, it's usually spread out through the whole system. And so we can't account for the losses in reductions of staff necessarily. Instead, what school districts would be forced to do is look at cutting programs, which could further the loss of students. And so regarding the choices that we make, I think there's been a really good conversation over the last 2 years about what a quality school is amongst policymakers. Right now, we don't necessarily have a system that I believe gives parents any reasonable expectation or any reasonable understanding of what a quality school is. And so as parents are making these decisions, I'm not sure they have the right information to be able to choose what is the best school for them under the current system that we have in Missouri. Additionally, the example I use to describe the convenience factor, that there are other reasons why a parent may choose to disenroll a student from any individual school district, is Halfway, Missouri. For those of you that aren't aware, Halfway is called Halfway because it's halfway between Buffalo and Bolivar. If you go to Halfway, there's not a lot of jobs there. There's a school, and that's about the entire community. Most of the people that live in Halfway work in Bolivar or Buffalo, and so it doesn't take many parents to make the convenience decision to say, I'm going to enroll my student in Buffalo or Bolivar, where the losses to Halfway end up resulting in the question for the community of why do we have a school here anymore? And so the students that are left in these school districts, that when students leave, are the ones that are most impacted. And so I think policymakers just need to make sure that they're taking into account both sides of this. We will still have to try to educate the students that remain in these school districts. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in opposition?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is David Lee Brush, and I'm with the Missouri Equity Education Partnership Action. And I'd kind of like to piggyback on what the previous speaker said about the rural communities to put a little perspective on things. Yesterday, I drove down to Bismarck on very uncongested back roads to watch the eclipse. And to no one's surprise, I visited with people there. And one of them I visited with was a man who owned a small business in Bismarck. And we were talking about the school and the district and on and on. And he, I asked him blankly, what would a bill like this do for him personally? And he said that as a business owner, it would be devastating because the district, or the school district, is the anchor of that community. And he said, quote, if the school goes, there goes the town. Bismarck doesn't, it was a charming little town, and it's starting to kind of come back, and taking the school away would hurt that. So I got home last night, and I did some Googling, and I found out that Bismarck gets 61% of its PPE from the state. That is a huge difference as opposed to a school like Rockwood, which only gets 19% of its PPE from the state. So the dollars aren't the same in Bismarck as they are in Rockwood. Families used to go to work in Rockwood from Bismarck when there was an auto plant there in the 80s. And so it would be logical that some of those families might take their kids up to Rockwood if this passed. But the dollars leaving Bismarck would be more harmful to Bismarck and schools like Bismarck than the dollars would be getting them in Rockwood. To put it into a little bit more perspective, the average teacher salary in Bismarck is $42,550. So if 7 students leave Bismarck, that is the equivalent of 1 teacher's salary. So 7 students leaving, which is, and they could lose up to 3%, so they could lose 15. They could lose the equivalent of 2 teachers' pay in Bismarck with this bill. In Rockwood, it would take 30 students leaving before they would lose the equivalent of 1 teacher's salary with their state allocation. Because the foundation formula recognizes equity in its funding, then taking that equity out by moving the dollars from District A to District B is going to harm the smaller districts which already struggle with the equity gap as it is statewide. We believe local control decreases the equity gap and serves students well, and they deserve quality schools. And we have heard with this bill particularly over and over again over the last 3 years, your zip code shouldn't matter. Your zip code shouldn't matter. And what I realized yesterday driving through, I felt like 947 zip codes to take the back roads home. Looking at schools like Viburnum and Caledonia and Leadwood, that the zip code in this absolutely matters because every kid deserves equity funding in their zip codes. We have an obligation to commit funding and resources to creating better quality schools in all the zip codes, and this bill just ships kids to other zip codes. So this bill illustrates perfectly that zip code does matter, and we are trying to create the haves and have-nots with the zip codes. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for this witness? Yes, Senator Koenig, proceed.
Yeah, I mean, what I see repeatedly is me, and not about the student. Like, it's all about the school, it's all about the teachers, it's all about the administration, and it's not about the student. If a parent thinks or believes that they're going to get a better education because they happen to live in another town where they spend all their time working and they can get to after-school activities, wouldn't that be better for the student? Why is that not better for the student?
I'm not saying it's not better for the student, and families can do that. They can pay tuition to do that now. They have choice.
They have choice if they happen to be rich.
Well, this bill doesn't change that, and neither does any of the other bills. We can't look at this bill in a vacuum, and we are incredibly.
And do you have any evidence at all that these schools would somehow close or not be able to function? I mean, we have open enrollment programs across the whole country.
Well, I can point to, they mentioned Illinois recently. Illinois does not have a school choice program like this. And my mother grew up in a small town in Illinois called Chatham. And they made a concentrated decision in the mid-'80s, early '90s to focus on their small school that had grown from voluntary consolidation in the '50s. My mom was the first graduating class out of Glenwood High School.
All right,
they poured money into it, and the school and the community absolutely grew. And their quality of living went up, and that community has grown because they put an effort into the public schools.
All right, so you're not answering the question. So you don't have any evidence. You don't have any studies or anything that this would be somehow detrimental for students?
Well, that was an empirical piece of anecdotal evidence I just gave you from a different state, so there's that. And
that's not any kind of study. That's not any kind of evidence. That's just spouting stuff off.
Here's the thing that I want to say, though. I don't want to have to find out that, you know, we go into it and say, well, we don't have any evidence that it's not going to happen, when common sense dictates that it's going to, and then find out, oops, it
Common
did
sense
happen.
would tell you that if a parent believes their child's going to get a better education in another school, that they probably will get a better education in that school because they believe that school will meet their needs.
And then they're going to leave a
the-
lot of other children in that district behind because they can only move 3%. And IEP students are going to be some of the kids left behind because schools do not have to take IEP students or ELL students because they do not have to increase staff. So we are going to further harm more marginalized kids with this bill.
We're going to have to disagree on that.
Further questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much.
Further witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Michelson with the Missouri State Teachers Association, go on record in opposition to the bill. I co-sign what has been mentioned in opposition to the bill already, and just bring up a couple points. I know you've heard a lot of testimony on these bills over the years, but a couple concerns we have. We have great cooperation among our school districts, working together on things like the Success Ready Student Network. We worry that when you start pitting school districts against each other, a lot of that collaboration will go away, be detrimental to students. Another aspect of that competition is going to be increased administrative bloat. So you're going to have districts that are going to be hiring further administrators in order to run these programs to recruit more students and to make sure that they're checking all of the boxes within what the provisions of the bill outline how these open enrollment programs will be run. So be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Any further witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, are there any witnesses here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Representative, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill, in my opinion, is a pro-public school bill. I believe that it is a local control bill because it allows the local taxpayers to decide what the future of their school looks like by what they decide to do with their children. As a 20-year administrator, I was never afraid to compete. I believe my school was as good as any school in the state of Missouri, and I believe most administrators feel that way. And this doesn't force consolidation. It allows those taxpayers in that district to determine what their district looks like and whether they want to, those parents want to keep their students there or if there is a better option someplace else. 3% cap. There may be 2 districts in the state of Missouri that have less than a 3% mobility rate. If you go to the department, they say the average is around 20%. I think that's high. But still, a 3% cap is very small for that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative. That will conclude the public hearing on House Bill 1989. We will next go to public hearing for Senate Bill 1311. Senator Koenig, if you would not mind taking over the chair for a moment.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, this microphone really is causing a problem here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Curtis Trent representing District 20. Senate Bill 1311 is the Media Literacy and Critical Thinking Act. So, you know, we kind of live in an unprecedented era of connectivity around the world in which, you know, people, including students, minors, people who maybe have not yet fully developed their critical thinking capacity, have access to unparalleled amounts of information in a very uncontrolled way, which is good in many instances, but which can also cause problems as that information can be false or otherwise misleading, can lack context, and if consumed, particularly by children, can be detrimental to them in a variety of ways. It's also a bit of a foreign security, national security issue, because not only do our students have access to a wide variety of information that originates in this country, they also have access to a wide variety of information that originates in other countries, some of which I think it would be wise for us to presume could be malicious. So what this legislation would do is create a pilot program to basically help create and develop media literacy in students. The program would be nestled in the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They would have to select 5 to 7 school districts to participate in this pilot program. We also have a fairly specific definition of the kinds of things that would occur in the pilot program, components of media literacy, develop strategies for students learning within the daily classroom curricula in all grades, identifying high-quality resources for the program, and demonstrating and reporting how such sites addresses things like news content literacy, visual literacy, digital fluency, digital literacy, and all these are defined in the statute. We do put a sunset on this. It terminates on June 30th, 2027, and this section would then expire 6 months after that. Again, the goal is to develop strategies by which, if the pilot program is successful, a more permanent program might eventually be implemented. I appreciate the committee's consideration. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, anybody testify in support of Senate Bill 1311?
Mr. Chairman, Chase Campbell, just going on record in support for the Holocaust Museum and Learning Center. As the Senator mentioned, in the age of social media and the rapid news cycle, this is definitely an issue we need to take a look at.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in support of Senate Bill 1311? Anybody to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 1311? Anybody to testify for informational purposes only? All right, that concludes our hearing on Senate Bill 1311.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Then take all in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it.